Jeez, inflation come down to 3.2%. Unemployment going up to 4.2%. What's happening with the UK economy? How will it affect the property market? How, more importantly, will it affect the Fife property market? And is a 2-bed or a 3-bed Fife home the most popular and the fastest selling? Let's find out now. It's an interesting one, eh? Details out today. Inflation's dropped to 3.2%. Unemployment, though, has gone up to 4.2%.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're going with this? Because it's a wee bit different to what's happening in America.
Yeah, I was just going to say we were discussing that the other day, Jim, as well. Obviously, the things that are happening in America and the potential base rates of things across there, where they're going to end up in comparison to what we're experiencing. So, yeah, it's interesting to look at the things, different sides.
Is there a base rate reduction on the cards in the next couple of months? There seems to be a bit of pressure now. Everybody's calling for the Bank of England to reduce interest rates or base rates. But will that actually affect, actual mortgage rates? Because remember, mortgage rates are all about the interbank lending and the swap rates. It's got nothing really to do with base rates. So they might actually keep it high as a result of that, just deliberately to make sure that they attract inward investment still in comparison to the high interest rates. Because then what they'll do is if they reduce base rates and America increases their rates, that means the dollar will be strengthened against the pound. Therefore, you'll more or less go to America and you'll be getting £1 versus $1. It'll be more expensive. It'll be more expensive for us to export. And we're a big exporter worldwide. That could make a fundamental difference. So these are all things that have got to be taken into account. It's amazing, Richard, how most people actually think, what is it? No, just property. It's like, no, it's not. There's a huge amount of information and backwork it goes on in the background to understand where the property market's going. And even the government has got it wrong and admitted yesterday that their forecasting models are completely out of sync now in comparison to what the economy is on for forecasting for the future. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out as well. Anyway, what's the most important question in our minds at this point in time, Richard? 2 or 3-bed Fife homes. Which actually sells faster? Yeah. Which sells faster, Richard? Come on, let's start on this. What have you got to say?
I think really, as we say, understanding the nuances of the property sales is really essential for both homeowners and for investors and the dynamic Fife property market. And I mean, a few weeks ago, we stated that that Fife properties that had sold subject to contract in the 3 months of like December, January and February, it took an average of 71 days to sell. Now time has moved on slightly, and looking at January, February and March, Fife house sales has slightly improved. So now we're looking at the average Fife home in Q1 of 2024 was on the market from an average of 68 days before agreeing a sale.
Wow! Could you see this speeding up in the next quarter? Do you think it's a lot? Yeah. Do you think it's a lot to do with the time of year and the very fact that it's maybe a lot lighter? And therefore, viewings will go quicker. And therefore, as well as we've got to admit, I mean, the Liz Truss debacle was back in Q1 of 2023. We still had a fallout from there, didn't they? Where everybody that seems ages ago too. What is it? In the East Newton areas and that, have you got a number for these areas?
So let's break it down. So that was Fife in Q1.
So Fife overall is 68 on average.
68 days, yeah.
So there's going to be some below and there's going to be some above, and there's maybe going to be some straight bang on. So we're going to talk about what is for St Andrews, East Neuk, Cooper, Levenmouth and Glenrothes.
Yeah. So we'll start with Levenmouth. So the KY area and the average Levenmouth home in Q1 of this year was on the market for around, the average of 28 days before agreeing the sale. So that's 20 days in comparison to the Fife average of 68. Okay. If we look at Glenrothes,
28 days.
20 days. compared to 68. Compared to 68.
Do you not think that's a lot to do with affordability, and that's why they go so quick? Yeah. Plus the fact you've got the train station.
I was just going to say,
that's going to make a huge difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
I actually commented. Here's a comment I said the other day to one of the surveyors when he gave me a home report for a property in Leiden. I said, wait a minute, that's almost at the same price as East Neuk. And he went, that's it. So are we saying there's going to be a point in time where possibly Leiden's going to catch up to the same prices as London Links and East Neuk as well? Wow.
I think over time it will. And I've said this to people that are, and recently I think the train station, and there's a lot of other things getting put into the area at Leiden, and it's a really good area. I mean, the train station won't have a positive impact in terms of hiking up house prices and things overnight, but through time it will definitely transpire.
Mm-hmm. So what about, that's Leiden. What about
Leiden's,
East Neuk?
The East Neuk, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so East Neuk in Q1 has an average of 49 days before agreeing a sale.
Okay. So what about St Andrews then?
St Andrews is on an average of 22 days in the Q1 before they agree a sale.
That's quite surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But then remember, that's a lot to do with what's actually been sold. That doesn't mean to say when you look at that, the ones sitting on the market right now for the length of time. It'd be interesting. I mean, we've not got that statistic now, but it'd be interesting to see how long it actually sat on the market.
Yeah, it's time of market.
Yeah, because remember, this is all about what's sold. So how fast it's sold. So it tells us how fast a property is selling, but what it doesn't tell us is how long a property is staying on the market, because we're not getting that data as well included in the survey. That'll be interesting to know. So when we come to where's next? Cooper.
So Cooper's a big difference. So in Q1 it had an average of 83 days before agreeing a sale.
Yeah.
So that's a big jump, and it's a lot higher than the Fife average as well.
It's quite surprising. It's maybe a lot to do with maybe a lack of stock. And therefore people going for higher prices, less house sales. You know, that could have an impact on it as well. What about
Glenrothes?
Glenrothes, yeah.
Well, it was an average of 18 days before agreeing the sale.
So, fairly saying then, the Cooper's actually skewing these figures.
Yeah, it is.
So without Cooper, actually the average days would be around about 30. So it's all Cooper's fault.
Yeah, there's obviously different factors that are given that figure, that average figure of 83 days for Cooper, as a comparison to the rest of the areas.
It's interesting to see though that the 71 days to sell, and now we're doing it 68 days to sell over Fife. I mean, the changes, although minimal, is noteworthy against the backdrop of the UK's economic environment, like we discussed at the beginning. And as seasoned estate agents in Fife, our interactions with landlords and homeowners eager, put my teeth back in, to navigate the Fife property market has revealed a common query: the impact of property type and the number of bedrooms on its saleability. This will make a fundamental difference, won't it? So what do I mean by saleability? Let me just think about that for a minute. It can be measured over in several ways, I would say. One method is calculate what percentage of homes of that type, for example, compare to how many sell, how many don't, if that makes sense. Another is to calculate how long it takes to agree a sale. Or a few weeks ago, we actually looked at how the prices range affects how long it takes to agree a sale. And therefore, I think this blog itself is all about, wishing to look at how quickly a property sells when looking at the type of property or the number of bedrooms in comparison.
It's that comparison to, right, okay, is it a 2-bedroom house, a 2-bedroom flat, a 3-bedroom house, 3-bedroom flat? How quickly do they sell, and how long are they on the market?
So it's a detached versus a semi versus a terraced, or versus the flat, which sells quicker.
Which performs better,
so do you want to take a look at the home sales then and tell us all about them over Fife? And we'll maybe break that down into regions as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, looking at the home sales that have been taking place over the last 3 months, this is how long it has taken to find a buyer from these different property types. Okay, so what you said there about detached houses in Fife, and we've said 84 days to find a new buyer for detached houses. Okay.
Okay.
If it's a semi-detached house in Fife, you're looking at 52 days to find a buyer. If it's a terraced or a townhouse in Fife, you're looking at about 57 days to find a buyer. And flats and apartments generally in Fife are around about 68 days to find a buyer.
So it's taking longer for a detached house to sell or find a buyer. Just find a buyer, actually. That's what it is. So let me just think about that. And that's predominantly because detached houses are by definition probably a lot dearer. I mean, that would probably be the accurate assessment, wouldn't it? So semi-detached houses 52, terrace houses 57, apartments and flats are 68. Quite surprised about that. I'm still convinced that flats are going to go a lot quicker if interest rates still stay where they are and if lending still stays where it is as well, or it gets a wee bit more difficult. I definitely think that flats and apartments have got a long way to go in terms of appreciation, I would say. Definitely. I think their time's come. Let's quickly look at a graph and see it in graphical form. Here we go. So here it is here.
That makes it a lot clearer,
Yeah, I mean, detached 84 days to sell, semi-detached 52 days to sell, terrace houses 57, flat 68. Now, I tell you what, this doesn't take into account how long it takes a solicitor to go through conveyancing.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting one to do, because it's not all the same, is it? Because you could have a period house. It's maybe been in somebody's ownership for about 50 years, and then the titles might not be the same as the titles, because they're not held in land registry then. They're probably just held in the old quill and ink paper. And I really mean quill and ink when you talk about it, because that's how they were all done. Whereas maybe semi-detaches are quite new and terrace houses are quite new as well, and maybe the flats are quite new as well. So maybe the detached, maybe it is skewed in terms of these figures, in terms of what that is overall, I would say.
That's a good point.
So how does it, is there anything startling if we drill down into the areas like St Andrews, East Neuk, Cooper and Leven and Glenrothes? Is there anything startling about what you see about the different statistics in these areas? Does anything jump out you would want to highlight? Or is it just a similar sort of pattern?
It's apart from the thing is, flats and apartments, I think, is quite an interesting one that you picked up on. And we could lead with that if you want to look at the different areas just for flats and apartments, because it does change quite differently. So in the Leven Mouth area, so we're looking at 68 days for flats and apartments in the Fife area as a whole to find a buyer. In the Leven Mouth area, it's only 20 days. And then in the Glenrothes area, it's only 15 days.
Wow.
And in the St Andrews area, it's only 22 days. So they're all fairly similar. If you look at the East Neuk, which is not unsurprising because the amount of flats, it's 48 days to find a buyer.
And then if we look at predominantly, maybe the East Neuk's a lot to do with the fact that you don't really get that many flats. It tends to be townhouses.
So that makes sense. Here's one as well, and it's probably maybe down to the amount of flats available, but 180 days in Cooper. Cooper's figures are throwing us off today because it says 180 days to find a buyer. That's what the stats are telling us.
Wow, that is quite interesting.
Yeah,
definitely. So, but flats are actually selling the quickest, and this comes back down to saying that you were saying we said St Andrews for Fife was 22. No, sorry, St Andrews was 22 to agree a sale, and yet the 22 is the flats as well, which gives me the impression that the Q1 of 2024 was predominantly in the St Andrews area. The number of sales were predominantly flats and apartments.
Yeah, that would make sense because those stats match up. Yeah.
Yeah, that I think that's a fair assessment to say. Whereas East Neuk, it took 49 days in total to actually agree a sale. But in flats and apartments, I think it only took, you were saying 15 days.
No, it took 48.
48. So 48 versus East Neuk 49. Yeah, kind of about the same as well then.
Yeah.
All the numbers are a wee bit skewed this time. So if we then take this then and actually look at one beds, and look at the number of bedrooms in that mix then. The number of bedrooms, one beds in Fife, two beds, in Fife, 3 beds in Fife, 4 and 5, and so on and so forth.
And so on, yeah.
Which one actually sells the quickest? Now,
So,
I would be a betting man. I would be a betting man and say
Right,
straight away, usually, typically, I think flats, the ones that would sell the quickest would be the 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
So what's your thoughts when you looked at the numbers?
Well, I've got my figures in front, and just for the record, Jim doesn't have these in front of him. I've got them. So let's go. So yeah, so looking at home sales that have taken place in the last 3 months, and this is how long it's taken to find a buyer for the different bedroom types. Okay, so the 1-bedroom homes in Fife is 56 days to find a buyer.
Okay. Yep.
The 2 bedrooms is 58 days. So they are fairly similar. 3 bedrooms are 64 days. 4 bedrooms, 78 days. And 5 bedrooms or more, it's 124 days to find a buyer.
Okay. Now, yeah, okay. Now, this is why I thought it's going to be 1 and 2 bedroom flats, because then affordability it comes down to. I mean, if you're in St Andrews, a 1 and 2 bedroom flat is typically going to be a lot less than a 5-bedroom detached house. Definitely, unless it's an HMO, which is a completely different story. Because that's the HMO privilege. It actually gives it that uplift, and what we do is what it does is what we call forced appreciation.
Yeah.
In other words, the very fact it's an HMO licensed property, and it's more than likely to keep its HMO, and you're going to get a return on investment. Deliberately forcibly appreciates the value of the property. If the HMO didn't exist, it would be a significantly less the valuation than what it is, and it's purely just because it's an HMO. So we call that forced appreciation. You get a lot of that in America.
Yeah, forced appreciation is quite common in America.
Yeah, and it's because they deliberately zone blocks of apartments for rental only.
Yeah.
So you can't buy them to live in them as residential properties. You have to buy them to rent them, and they're forced appreciation areas. So therefore, the value of the property is determined by the value of the return on investment you're going to get, which is effectively the rent that you'll pay.
Yeah.
So in order to get the valuation of your property up, just like commercial properties used to be as well with forced appreciation in this country, all you need to do is make sure you get a lease with rent built in for the next 10 years, and therefore, if it's at a higher rate than what it is now, it'll forcibly appreciate the valuation of the property because you've got a guaranteed 10-year rent, which is a guaranteed 10-year return on investment.
Yeah.
That's forced appreciation. That's how it works. And it works with commercial properties as well. If you have a commercial property and you lock someone into a 20-year lease, but you give it a 5-year breakout clause and also maybe a 5-year revision in terms of the rental value, or maybe even every year revision in terms of the rental value, then you're more than likely to get a good price for that on the resale market because you've got somebody locked in as a really good tenant. But you've got to have a cast iron tenant, to be honest. So that's just a wee insight into what forced appreciation is and how to actually get the value of commercial property up and how to get the value of an HMO up as well, actually, for that want a better phrase. So let's look at that in graphical form. So here we are here. So you can see easily at a glance that the 5 beds are obviously taking 124 days, 478, 364, 258, and 1 bed's 56. What's your thoughts on this yourself, Richard?
Yeah, I think drilling down into the numbers, it's become apparent that 5 semi-detached homes are the quickest to sell when it comes to the type of property in Fife. With 1 bedrooms, obviously, as we can see, they're selling the quickest, just quite close to the 2 bedrooms as well.
Do you think we'll get a 1-bedroom semi-detached though? Few and far between, aren't they?
No.
to get the best of everything, it's like the quickest to sell in the semi-detached, and the quickest to sell is a 1-bedroom. No, probably a 2-bedroom semi-detached. You very rarely get a 1-bedroom semi-detached. But it gives you a real good insight into it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think we could break it down. I think we'll concentrate on just the 2 and 3 bedrooms. Obviously, that's what predominantly we're looking at today, because I could go through each area for all, and it might take some time. But if we look at,
is there anything that jumps out again when you go through East Neuk and drill down at the micro regions like East Neuk, Glenrothes, St Andrews, Cooper, and Leavenmouth? Is there anything that jumps out at you that says it's a wee bit different than the norm? Let me guess. Could it be Cooper?
It is actually Cooper. So let's have a wee look. Let's have a wee look then. So obviously 2 and 3 bedrooms in the Leavenmouth area.
Yeah.
So if we look at Leavenmouth area, it's 18 days for a 2-bedroom and 16 days for a 3-bedroom to find a buyer. Okay. And then if we look at Glenrothes, it's 13 days and for a 2-bedroom, 23 days for a 3-bedroom. So they're a wee bit different. There's a bit of and just the interest there, 1 and 2 bedrooms are both 13 days to find a buyer in Glenrothes, and then it jumps to 23 days for a 3-bedroom. So an extra 10 days on that.
This could be a lot to do with what we call the nuclear family. You know, effectively, but there's a lot of people actually deciding to live on their own, aren't they? You know, it's like, forget it, I'll just live on my own. Or there's a lot of people actually, you know, and this, it's a well-known fact, you know, when you look at the birth rates in Britain and the UK, for example, we're not actually having enough children to replace ourselves. That then comes into a lot to do with immigration as well, and having a proper immigration policy. Because if you're expecting, you know, to replace yourself, in order, you've got to get people to work so they can pay taxes. So when you get to your elderly age, you're going to be able to sustain this economy with pensions and with national insurance, with the National Health Service, and all these free things that you get right now. So unless you're replacing people in that economic situation, you've got a ticking time bomb there in terms of what you're getting. I mean, Japan's seen the worst of that, where their real estate market tumbled to about 1/6 of what it was worth. 1/6.
And is that because they didn't replenish enough people to?
No proper immigration policy. Everybody's getting older. There's people living to 100 years old now. They stopped working when they were 60. Therefore, they're not contributing to the taxes to the economy anymore. And they've not had enough people replacing them in order to work in the economy as well. So what they're having to do is put incentives in place to get people back, even at 70 and 80-year-old, to be productive and start working in the economy, to lift it back up as a result of that. That's why Japan's seen that, and we should take heed of that and actually realise that we have to have a proper immigration policy in order to bring skills and expertise and wealth and money into our economy from overseas as a result. That's the only way we'll be able to move forward. But luckily, Scotland has 20,000 net migration, which means, in other words, we've got 20,000 more people coming into the Scotland area than we're actually leaving the Scotland area. So it's actually quite a healthy economy we've got in terms of the number of people coming in, because that's all skills and resources. That's nothing to do with people coming on boats and stuff like that. So anybody's listening to this, forget it. Probably just don't watch this podcast at all. Don't watch this at all if that's the way your mindset is, because we have to have somebody coming in order to work in our economy, in order to pay taxes, in order to bring skills and development into our economy, in order for our economy to grow. Because if you're not growing, you're contracting. As a result, you've less resources at your beck and call in order to sustain pensions, sustain a health service, sustain education, sustain the policing service, sustain the council, sustain the public services. That's what we need as a result. But let's get back to this. What is the current Fife property market landscape like?
Okay, so I mean, just quickly before we move on, I just wanted to, obviously we've seen quite the similar trends there with 2 and 3 bedrooms. It continued into the East Neuk, so 59 days to find a buyer for 2-bedroom in East Neuk, and 78 days. But then it shifts when we go to St Andrews. Now this is quite interesting. So 2-bedroom properties took 17 days to find a buyer in St Andrews. And then 3-bedroom properties were 47 days. So that's quite a jump. But then I think that's probably
student market.
I'm just going to say, because the
2 bedrooms are okay for student market for renting. As soon as you get to 3 bedrooms, HMO.
Yeah, definitely. So that's where that's coming. And then Cooper actually wasn't too bad. It's 60 days to find a buyer for a 2-bedroom, and then it jumps to 96 days, which is a bit of a jump. But I think, actually, to be fair, the one that lifts out there is St Andrews, and as you say, Jim, it's 2-bedroom property, students, and then it changes when it gets to 3 bedrooms. So that explains
3 bedrooms. Nobody's wanting to buy a 3-bedroom unless it's got an HMO, because it's no possible to rent to 3 or more people unless they're related in some shape or form for that property. So back to this then, my question is, what is the current Fife property market landscape like?
Yeah, so the present day Fife property scene presents a bit of a mixed bag. An increase in listings compared to the 12 months prior suggests quite a vibrant market. Yet it must be remembered that there has been an increase in selling times, which hints at a shift towards the buyer's market. So in 2022, it took an average of 46 days to secure a home sale. whilst in 2023 it was 68 days. So this nuanced change underscores the importance of strategic selling and investment approaches in today's climate.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's actually important to. I know you hinted about the shift to possibly a buyer's market,
Yeah.
but we're still a wee bit away from that. We're still sitting about 49% of the whole properties on the market in Fife is actually sold. I mean, including the sold properties as well, there's about 2,000 properties. You can see it when you go into Rightmove, when you go into Zoopla and that, and you do. Overall, including sold properties, it's about 2,000. There's about 1,000 of them actually sold. So we're sitting around about 49 to 50%. Now, 50% and upwards is classed as a hot sellers market, and 50%, 49% and downwards to 40% is classed as a seller's market. It's only when you get to around about 35 to 40% that you're in a balanced market. And then when you start to go below the 30% level, the number of properties sold as opposed to what's on the market, you're kind of in a buyer's market. I mean, it tells you straight away, if you've got less properties sold and than the properties on the market, significantly less, then you're going to tell yourself, it's like, yeah, it's probably a buyer's market. It's common sense, isn't it? Well, mind you, it's maybe not that common.
That's the thing about common sense, it isn't.
Yeah. It's not that common. And even idiots have opinions. Hey, that could include me as well, by the way.
Yeah, but I think, like you say, Jim, I think understanding and adapting to these shifts is critical for those that are selling their home. And the proper presentation and pricing strategy can significantly enhance your Fife property's appeal and aligning with the current buyer's preference and market trends and things as well. On the investment side, properties that have lingered on the market might represent maybe possibly hidden gems. These situations often allow for more negotiation leeway, picking things up at a better price point, potentially leading to an advantageous deal for investors.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, didn't we? You sent me over a portfolio and I worked out the numbers and I thought, even at 80% of that portfolio value, there's no way I could make these numbers work with the financing that's available right now.
So and how I sent it to you, if you looked at it, and I sent you just like the gross, the purchase price, the rent and things, and on the surface it looked okay, but then as you said, you drilled it down and looked what financing you would need, and it didn't add up.
The only way you're going to get it is you're going to have to buy cash, and you're looking at a £500,000 portfolio, and anybody that's got £500,000 cash right now certainly wouldn't be wanting to buy cash. They'd be wanting to use themselves to leverage the position in order to buy more properties, to have a more of a capital gain over the medium to long term, and significantly more income, and actually spread the risk as well. Yeah. So I think as we enter Q2 of 2024, the property market in Fife is ripe for opportunities, definitely. Sellers must be attuned to what resonates with today's buyers, leveraging insights on preferred property types and sizes to their advantage. Meanwhile, though, Fife buyers, for example, and buy-to-let investors can find value in exploring properties that have been on the market for a longer than average, where negotiating can yield significant benefits. So where do we see the expert advice for navigating the Fife property market then? What's your thoughts on this? You were going to give some expert advice on this.
Yeah, and navigating the Fife property market, there's several strategies that can prove really invaluable. For sellers, it's to emphasise your property's unique selling points, be that the location. Obviously we've got the East Nuke and things that you could really push that, the size, the specification, your features. Ensure your Fife property is well presented and it's set in a realistic price base on the current market trends, and comparable sales will expedite the selling process.
That's quite interesting that you said that, Richard. And I think the words there that you said there was setting a realistic price based on current market trends. Now, I think personally, long gone are the days of putting on at the highest possible rate and then actually trying to get something for there. And you can if you want, if that's the strategy you want to use. But you've got to realise if you're using that type of strategy, you might be a wee bit longer in the selling than what we're actually talking about on here. For that reason, you might need to take account as well of the very fact that you might have to realign pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I mean pretty quick, as in after 4 or 5 weeks, if you're not getting any traction on your viewers and you're not really getting anybody through the door as such at that price point, then you're probably going to have to realign. Because remember, 500 people make a decision every single month, or over 500 people every single month in Fife, to buy and sell a property.
I think it's really important as well. I mean, if something's really kind of bespoke or unique and it's in a really good location and there's nothing to directly compare it to, there's always that opportunity to really kind of test the market and things. But I know that, but you have to make the client aware there could be, you need to be open to the fact that you might have to realign if this doesn't go the way it's going. Yeah.
Definitely. Education, definitely. And it's just like the one I've just about to got coming on. I'm just about to go around and do a pre-portal for it at Lomond Guest House. And I've just checked with the client. They've actually phoned the council and they says, look, it could be easily converted within 6 weeks to a residential property as well. So it's a 6-bedroom, 5 bathroom or 5 shower room, 3 reception property on end terrace. It's massive, but it's finished to an immaculate standard and it generates quite a lot of money. So for me personally, for somebody who wants to escape the rat race, it's going to be the best thing for them. And it's literally 100 yards from the beach.
Yeah.
I
know which one it is.
Yeah. It's like, why would you be living in Edinburgh if that's the case? Because the train station's only just along the road and you're going to get direct access into Waverley. Yeah. Hello. But I'll be launching that one just after this, actually. So watch out for that, people, on the Fife Properties Mitchell Street, Fife Properties leaving page. Don't go on the rest of them, because remember, it's a pre-portal specifically for that property. But it'll be a real good investment for somebody, I definitely think. But then talking about investments, talking about buyers and stuff like that, what's your thoughts on the buyers and investors then?
Yeah, so that was sellers. And for buyers and investors, conduct thorough research to identify areas with really high growth potential or that are marketed undervalued properties. I always say Glenrothes is that area. Do you know, it's like property, you could pick property.
Definitely is, eh?
Yeah.
I just don't. Honestly, Richard, I don't get that about Glenrothes. At the very fact that leaving is at a higher price point than Glenrothes almost now. And there's more properties selling leaving than there does in Glenrothes. It makes no sense at all. There's more people in Glenrothes, and yet they sell for less value. I tell you what, as an investor though, definitely it's a prime area which I've actually invested in as well, purely for that reason, because it's got great potential for growth in terms of capital and actually yield overall over the medium to long term. So, and I know for a fact, because I used to sit in the housing partnership panel with Fife Council, I know for a fact that the second most pressured area status outside of St Andrews is Glenrothes.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? I would have thought Cooper. I would have thought East Neuk at that time. But at that time, it was like Glenrothes. And I still think Glenrothes. But remember, Glenrothes has got a lot of new build going into it now with Tillis Russell disappearing and all that land going up for sale, and they're developing all that now. So that might be a wee bit changed now, but you're still getting properties at a really affordable price. When you think about these new builds at Beechwood and stuff like that, they're going for 300 and 400 grand. And you can still buy a 3-bedroom mid-terrace in Glenrothes for about 120 grand.
Yeah.
Hello.
Easily.
That's crazy, eh? And then the rental value on that would be what, 650 to 700?
Yeah, you're probably talking about 750.
Jeez.
I done a 2-bedroom.
It's relief. It's like
I've just done a 2-bedroom mid-terrace at 695.
That's 7.5% yield gross.
Yeah.
Imagine leveraging that. You could probably leverage that through the bank and actually be able to put that up to that yield, that net yield, up to possibly around. Actually, I'm just going to do a quick numbers. I'm really intrigued about that now. You've got my attention. I've
just done one up in Cadham now, probably a 2-bedroom mid-terrace. It's been done quite nicely, but I mean, recent to sale, it would probably be about 95, 100. And I've just let that at 695, and I was inundated with people for it. So 695, so say £700 a month.
Yeah, you could leverage that up to about 10%.
Yeah,
we're just getting the banks lending. I mean, you wouldn't. As I said before, the banks lending is the key here. I mean, if you're doing it at 6% mortgage rate for a 5-year deal, which is 5.99 or thereabout, then you're kind of just getting over the line, and you probably need to self-manage yourself. But this is what I say about, if you get finance at a good rate, for example, 4.5, then you're leveraging your yield to about net of, gross yield with a mortgage, you're leveraging it from 7 to 12.4.
Yeah.
So you're actually increasing it by about 5%. And then your bottom line's going up by about £1,500 in terms of your net profit, keeping full occupancy on that level. So I think these are all the things to understand. And this is what I say to a lot of investors. It's like, for God's sake, get the right advice before you run in. I'll tell you, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Remember that if you're looking to invest. Just make sure you've got the numbers right. Make sure you de-risk it as much as possible so you can weather a storm if it comes along. I'm not saying it's going to come along, but I'm saying you need to just make sure you can weather a storm if it does come along, so you know the casualty of things like credit crunches and stuff like that as well. I mean, somebody was talking to me about, saying I was talking rubbish this morning. Maybe I am, but who cares? It's only my opinion. You don't need to listen to it, said Jim. But it's interesting, and this was just on a tax forum for landlords where I'm giving people advice as an accountant, because I'm an accountant by trade, and I have been for a lot of years, and I still am. I still do all my accounts, still understand that and all the numbers as well as a business owner and an estate agent and a letting agent. But it's interesting how they were going, "You're talking nonsense." I'm like, really? How would I be talking nonsense? What would be your suggestion then? And you get stupid remarks like crypto and Bitcoin and stuff, and it's like, are you having a laugh? Because I said to them, in the last 50 years, property prices have gone up 8,004%. I'll just say that again, 8,004% in the last 50 years. Inflation's gone up 1,400%. Which one performs better? Plus the fact you've even got the income coming out of it as well over the last 50 years if you were renting it all that time. So you've got the income, plus you've got the appreciation. And then they said, but that doesn't mean to say it's going to increase for the next. But what about all the wars that are on? And what about the economy? If the economy crashes and stuff like that, what did you not think that happened in the last 50 years then? And it still went up 8,004%. Hello, McFly? Anybody in? It's like, they just don't get it, do they? And I went, yeah, okay, just fill your boots. How are you getting on being a multi-millionaire then? And I've obviously not got a response from that. They'll probably be stony broke and tell me I'm talking rubbish. It's like, okay then, don't listen. But that's the state of play just now. You're right. For buyers and investors, high growth potential, definitely, or market undervalued properties. Considering properties may have been overlooked and can often be neglected at a more favourable price. And you never know when that person actually bought that property. If they bought it like 20, 30 years ago, whether they let it go for 80% the value or 100% the value is neither here nor there. Some of them just want rid of it, and it just makes their numbers work. And it makes our numbers work as well. That's why. So you're not going to get everything. You know how this all started, Richard? Let me tell you how this all started about this conflab back and forward on the tax forum for landlords, where somebody said, I've got about £500,000 to invest. I'm getting pretty bored. I'm maybe not going to do property. And I went, congratulations, because boring pays well. It's like, you're supposed to be bored in property. It's not supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to be pretty straightforward. It's supposed to be, you buy a property at the right price, you rent it at the right price, you finance it at the right price, you lock everything in, you guarantee your return, and job's done. Extremely boring. And then you move on and you do it with the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And it becomes a McDonald's system where you've guaranteed your success every single time, and you get the exact same result every single time as well. That's called the McDonald's system. Yes, that is the burgers, the franchise system. It's no matter what you do the same thing every single time, and you get the exact same results. Just like when you say, what's the height of ignorance? Doing the same thing every single time, but expecting a different result. Well, it's the other way around this time. Works in your favour. If you do the same thing every single time, you'll get the same result. And that's exactly what you want when you come to property investing. So what would be your advice for everyone then? For everyone then, what would be your advice to them?
I mean, for everyone as a whole, it's really important to stay informed. The I mean, our Fife property blogs and the national property news, and you can keep quite abreast to the local market trends and provide a kind of strategic edge above everybody else, whether you're selling, whether you're buying, or whether you're investing. We always say, like, when we break this down and look at the stats, it gives you such a better insight and a better picture to how everything works, it connects together in the market as a whole. And if you've got that on your side, then it will work to your advantage, because a lot of people don't have all this information or even know this information. So yeah, keep your knowledge up, keep yourself informed.
Yeah. I'm surprised at how many people don't, and they don't even understand the dynamics, do they?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, with its ever shifting dynamics and things, the Fife property market does present many opportunities and challenges as well for sellers. Aligning the market preferences and presenting your property in the best light it can be is really crucial for the buyers and investors. On the other hand, they should look for the potential in less obvious places where patience and negotiation can unlock really significant value. Look at those things that are maybe, if a property sat on the market for a while, look at why that is. Look at where you could maybe negotiate and find a good offer. And navigating this landscape really requires market knowledge, adaptability, and really strategic action as well.
Yeah, I think we'll welcome a good clear out of all the property sourcers. I think there's a lot of people actually trying to be a property sourcer. I'm a property sourcer. Okay, so what does that mean? Oh, I would then source properties and try to sell them to someone else, and that's fine. But you've got so many of them because all the training courses are getting done. Everybody's coming out and claiming they're a property sourcer. So it's almost like, oh, yawn fest.
Yeah, and it's like some of them have been around for a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years, not any knowledge or expertise at all, and they're trying to flog you something. It's like, this is the numbers. It's like, okay, so where did you get these numbers? Oh, well, I just made them up. All right, okay. So you just made them up. So and that's where I talk about, fools rush in where angels fear to tread, because they've effectively just made them up. All these things you see on Instagram and TikTok about, oh, I bought it for this price, and I got it for this price, and I did it for that price, and it's worth that much, and here's my return. And it's like, no, it's no, because you've not even sold it yet. So how do you know what your return is? Yeah, it's just a complete fabricated lie.
And listening to somebody's property sourcing and trying to, and I mean, they can say, oh, you can purchase it for this and rent it for this, but do they know the area? Will it actually perform like that? Will they actually achieve that rental value? Do you know?
Notice how they don't talk about occupancy rate.
Yeah.
Because they've got no knowledge of occupancy rate, and the occupancy rate is what will drive your real return.
Yeah.
You could say you're going to get £750 a month, which is £9,000 a year, and you could have a £90,000 property, and you could say it's a 10% gross yield. But the reality is, what if the occupancy rate's only 90%?
Yeah.
Then you're not going to get that. You're not going to get 10% every single year. You're going to get, I think it's 8.1 every year. So 8.1%. And what if the occupancy rate ends up being 50%? Well, you're only going to get 5% a year. So all this thing about, people throwing numbers at you and saying, this is what you're going to get. It's like saying, this is what you could have won on Bullseye. It's that sort of thing. Hey, this is what you could have won. It's like, yeah, okay, but I've not won it. So, the reality is I've won nothing. And that's effectively how property sourcers get you in. They get the excitement bubbling. Oh, I can get these sort of returns. No, you can't. You don't get these returns. It's practically impossible. That's on the best day possible. And I'll guarantee you'll never have the best day possible, because you've got a tenant. Its circumstances sometimes change. In other words, they split up, move someone else in, a partner, which maybe is antisocial. They possibly don't look after the property. They maybe don't pay the rent. They maybe lose their job. It's like, these are all the risks that you've got to take on board. And the ultimate way is actually what I talk about is make sure you get the numbers right so you can weather storms like that for property investment. So therefore, when it comes along, you're prepared for it. And you don't need to basically reach into your own pocket and take out your own money to have to pay for it.
Because these figures, like you say, Jim, it's based on full occupancy, 100% credit control. You've not got any large repair bills and or refurbishment. That's not factored in all of the time. So
Yeah, definitely. So we'll just finish off there. I mean, you know, whether you're looking to sell your cherished home or making that savvy investment, I think understanding the pulse of the Fife property market is your key to your absolute success here. If you have any questions or about what we've said or any of the articles we've got on the Fife property market itself, because we talk about the Fife property market. After all, we are called Fife Properties. That's what it says in the tin. Clue there. Don't hesitate to contact us. Just you can message us direct on these posts, and a lot of people do that, don't they, Richard? For you, they usually message you a lot of the times for advice on property investment and how to do that and where to start and what they should be doing and what things they should be doing to the property to make it the right for a tenant rather than actually right for the sale market, because there's two different avenues here. Being right for the sale market is completely different than being right for a tenant market. To make sure the numbers work for you. Equally as well, you know, people selling often just come to me for advice. It's typically, usually what happens nowadays, Richard, everybody just contacts us and goes, just get my property on the market. Okay, you're not getting anybody? No, just get it on the market. We know what you do. We understand completely what you're doing. We understand how you disrupt people and how you get into people's heads and then how you make that difference happen and how you deliver that exceptional sales price at the end, which way outweighs anything to do with fee. And that's technically how I usually say everybody else could do it for free, but I'll still put more money in your pocket and charge you for it.
Yeah, I think, like we said, we're doing the shows and putting our content out. 9 times out of 10, when we meet people and speak to them, they already know what we do because we've already demonstrated it to them.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Richard, thank you very much for giving your insight into the property market in Fife, whether it's 2 or 3 bedrooms, Fife homes which are selling fast. I think we've kind of established it's probably the 2 bedrooms that are selling the fastest, although 1 bedroom seems to be doing quite well as well, which is usually the person that wants to be professional and single and all the rest of it, or buy-to-let investors as well. And thanks very much for coming on. Until next time, guys. We'll see you on Saturday morning. What we're talking about on Saturday morning, can you give us an insight into that? Or am I putting you on the spot?
Putting on the spot again. It's fine, I'll get it now. It is...
Outgrowing your home.
Outgrowing your home, yes.
We're talking about Saturday morning. We're doing a sales show and we're talking about have you outgrown your home and what you should be doing about it. People move for circumstance, remember. They don't move just because they want to move. It's usually typically, I've got a new job. I've maybe got a salary increase, so I wait better. And maybe need a bigger house because baby's coming along. It's not going to wait. You're not going to be able to say, can you wait another couple of months? It's like when you're at month 9. Or you're possibly downsizing because your house is far too big and it's costing you an absolute fortune and you need to downsize to something more appropriate. That's what we're going to be talking about on Saturday morning, 9:30. So listen out for that and watch out for that with Richard and I. And till the next time, guys, it's bye-bye for now.
See you later.